If you were to ask people today about the most controversial figure in world history, many might name Napoleon or another famous general from more recent times, but that's partly because their stories are closer to us. If we travel further back and try to be objective, it's hard to find a more enigmatic and polarizing leader than Chinggis Khan or Genghis Khan. Yet we're really talking about Temüjin here, the man who would become known to the world as Chinggis Khan. Was he a brutal butcher or a visionary reformer? Why is he seen as a tyrant in some countries but celebrated as a great hero in others? And finally, what's the chance that you might be one of his descendants? In the early 2000s, the American Journal of Human Genetics published a groundbreaking article suggesting that about 16 million men worldwide share a unique Y chromosome variant likely tied to a single ancestor who lived in Mongolia around 1,000 years ago. Researchers speculated that this ancestor could be Genghis Khan himself. That claim sparked a wave of stories about 16 million direct descendants, but in reality, the study never definitively proved those numbers, nor did it confirm that all those chromosome carriers were definitely related to Genghis Khan. Still, given the vast expansions of the Mongol Empire and countless dynastic ties, it's not surprising that his genetic legacy spread widely across Eurasia. Another puzzle revolves around Chinggis Khan's oldest son, Yochi. Rumors claim he might not have been Temujin's biological child at all. If that were proven true, it would upend the usual narrative of how Chinggis Khan's lineage dispersed. To get a final answer, scientists would need DNA from Genghis Khan himself, yet the location of his tomb remains one of the world's greatest mysteries. To understand why Temujin's life story is so extraordinary, let's look back at his early years. The exact date and place of his birth remain uncertain, which complicates the work of historians. The most accepted version places his birth somewhere between 1155 and 1162 on the banks of the Onan River in the Delun Bulldog Valley near Lake Baikal. Legend says he was named Temüjin after his father's defeated enemy, a chieftain called Temüjin Uge. In any case, Temujin's childhood was harsh. His father, Yasuge, was poisoned by rival tribes, who also took away the family's Ulus domain. For several years, Temüjin, along with his siblings and stepmothers, wandered the steppe under constant threat of assassination. They hid in rivers overnight, concealed themselves in carts loaded with wool, and frequently changed camps to evade enemies. At that point, the boy was barely 10 years old. Yet even in these desperate times, young Temüjin revealed his first true gift, the ability to forge alliances. He sealed a blood brotherhood with Yamaka, a noble from an influential clan. Then, as part of the dowry for his wife Borta, he received a valuable sable coat. Temüjin immediately gave this coat to Togrul, often called Wang Khan, one of the most powerful rulers of the steppe. Gaining Togrul's favor attracted his first band of Nokers, warrior daredevils, who helped Temüjin secure a major victory over the Merkits in the region where the Kilok and Chikoy rivers meet. He quickly gained a reputation for seeking to minimize bloodshed, which was quite shocking in an era when enslaving or killing defeated enemies was standard practice. Instead, Temüjin offered people honorable service in his army, presenting himself as a wise and just ruler. By 1186, he had his Ulus and an army of around 30,000 warriors. Although the Mongols are often remembered for their conquests, Temüjin's true genius lay in diplomacy. This talent allowed him to unite various tribes and lay the foundation of what would become the Mongol Empire. A key part of this success was his ability to recruit extraordinary individuals who became vital to his rise. Take Jebe, for example. Known as the Arrow, he once nearly killed Temüjin with a perfectly aimed shot. Rather than hold a grudge, Temüjin recognized his talent and brought him into his ranks. Then there was Subede, a legendary general who joined Temüjin's cause willingly, inspired by his leader's fairness and vision. And finally, Togrul, initially a powerful ally, then a rival, and later an ally once more. Temüjin often used a strategy of letting people go only to win back their loyalty later. However, this relationship didn't end as well as the others, highlighting the complexities of his diplomacy. Of course, such alliances didn't come without conflict. Temüjin also had to contend with old enemies. For instance, he exacted brutal revenge on the Tatar tribe who had poisoned his father, ordering the execution of all men taller than a cartwheel. Yet despite his ruthlessness toward enemies, Temüjin remained fiercely loyal to those he considered his own. This loyalty earned him widespread support, and by 1206, at the Great Kurultai, the assembly of Mongol nobles, Temüjin was declared the sole ruler of all Mongols. It was here that he took the title of Chinggis Khan, officially uniting the steppe under a single banner. Many accounts focus on the brutal warfare of Genghis Khan, but he was also a far-sighted statesman. For instance, he established a precursor to a national postal service, the YAM system, which allowed messages to be carried swiftly between different parts of his empire. He also introduced the famous legal code known as the Great YASA, which emphasized loyalty, mutual support, and harsh punishment for deceit and betrayal. That applied even to captured enemies. If they stayed loyal to their ruler, they might be welcomed into Genghis Khan's army. But if they betrayed any leader, they faced immediate execution. Genghis Khan also championed meritocracy. Appointments were based on an individual's abilities rather than heritage. The Mongols were notably tolerant of different religions, letting each group follow its faith. Of course, his laws encouraged severe measures when it came to quashing any threat, yet senseless violence for the sake of violence was condemned. Chinggis Khan is often condemned for using scorched earth tactics and executing thousands. Critics cite mass killings, while defenders point out that the Roman Empire did the same, yet it is glorified in Western tradition. In truth, the Mongols had long been subjugated by more powerful neighbors, forced to pay tribute, and treated as uncivilized barbarians. So in many respects, going to war with northern China was a struggle for independence and security. At the same time, Chinggis Khan revived the Silk Road and promoted trade, understanding that any empire needed strong commerce, and often access to the sea, to survive. When that vital trade route eventually collapsed after the Mongol decline, Europeans looked for a sea route to Asia. That quest led to the discovery of the Americas, deeply affecting global history. In 1218, a Mongol trade caravan to Central Asia was plundered in the border city of Otrar. Whether or not Chinggis Khan sought a formal pretext for war, this incident sparked a brutal conflict with the Khwarezm Empire. The Mongols retaliated with astonishing ferocity, annihilating entire cities that resisted or that opened the gates but were perceived as traitors. After all, betrayal was the most grievous offense under the Great YASA. Historians often draw parallels between Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great. Both men built vast empires and integrated diverse cultures, yet they also ravaged many lands. Alexander is revered partly because historians loyal to him preserved a triumphant narrative. Mongol sources aren't as abundant and are frequently written by enemies. Also, it's worth noting that Genghis Khan never explicitly aimed to conquer the entire world. He's credited with saying he intended to rule everywhere his Mongol horse could step, but that kind of language was common among great conquerors, from Caesar to Napoleon. His sons and grandsons largely carried out the actual expansion to Eastern Europe. Chinggis Khan died on August 25, 1227, most likely from plague or typhoid. Legends claim all sorts of humiliating ends, from falling off a horse to being wounded or even outsmarted by a rival princess. By custom, his body was taken back to Mongolia and buried in a deep grave. Steppe tradition suggests the area was then trampled by horses, or even that a river was diverted over it so no one could ever find it. Since he was presumably buried with an enormous treasure, grave robbers have searched for his tomb for centuries, but so far, the site remains undiscovered. Meanwhile, his sons pressed on into places like Hungary, only to leave just as abruptly. Another great enigma of history. If you'd like to hear more about that, be sure to let us know in the comments, as we might say in a modern YouTube era.